The humans called it a blockade. We called it a mistake. My name is Horvath, and I served as strategic coordinator aboard the Eternal Dominion, flagship of the Combined Sovereignty Fleet. 37 cycles I spent analyzing lesser species, cataloging their strength, exploiting their weaknesses. In all that time, across 16 successful annexations, I never encountered anything quite like the paradox that was humanity. Let me be clear from the start. This was supposed to be simple. The initial scans showed promise. Earth, a garden world tucked away in an unremarkable spiral arm, teeming with biological diversity and mineral wealth. The dominant species had barely crawled beyond their own moon, still squabbling over borders drawn in dirt and ideology. Their military technology was laughable by our standards. Kinetic weapons, chemical propulsion, electromagnetic communications that leaked across space like children shouting in a library. Perfect targets, in other words. Commander Zelrek had assembled the Third Pacification Fleet with characteristic efficiency. 1,200 warships, each capable of glassing a continent. Support vessels, numbering in the thousands. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust if we felt particularly motivated that morning. This will take 4 solar rotations, maximum. Zelrek announced during our final briefing. His trilateral jaw clicked with satisfaction, a gesture our species reserved for assured victories. Standard protocol. Establish orbital dominance. Disable their primitive satellites. Demand surrender. They lack faster-than-light communication, so their scattered colonies won't even know their homeworld has fallen until we have already integrated them into the labor networks. I should have questioned his confidence. Should have noticed the strange energy signatures our long-range sensors detected in Earth's asteroid belt. Should have wondered why a species this backward had established mining operations in such hazardous environments. Should have. The fleet emerged from quantum slip 3 astronomical units from Earth. Standard distance, far enough to demonstrate power without triggering panicked launches of whatever pathetic weapons they might throw at us. Deploy the resonance barrier, Zelrek commanded. Nothing leaves this system. Nothing enters. Let them feel the weight of isolation. The barrier materialized across thousands of cubic light seconds, a shimmering membrane of warped space-time that would redirect any vessel attempting to breach it. We'd used this technique successfully on 14 previous conquests. The psychological impact alone usually triggered immediate compliance. Within 1 solar rotation, every major population center on Earth would understand their situation, talk to us, or watch your civilization suffocate in its own cradle. Except the humans didn't do either. The first response came 6 hours after barrier deployment. Not from their governments, not from their military installations. From a civilian broadcasting station in what their maps designated as North America. Hey there, space friends. The transmission was almost offensively cheerful, delivered by a female human with artificially brightened hair and teeth so white they probably violated some natural law. This is Kelly Branson, coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, and we have just received confirmation that yes, those are indeed alien spaceships surrounding our planet. Wild, right? She laughed. Actually laughed. Our top scientists are saying these visitors have established some kind of energy field, preventing space travel, which honestly explains why the Mars shuttle never showed up this morning. Now we are getting reports of… Wait, I'm being told something. Okay, folks. Apparently someone just flew a banner behind a crop duster over the fleet's position. Can we get that feed up? The image shifted to aerial footage. One of their primitive aircraft, powered by controlled explosions that would embarrass a first-year engineering student, trailing a fabric banner that read, "Welcome to Earth. Please don't shoot. We are mostly harmless." Zelrek's primary eyes narrowed to slits. Mostly harmless? They quote pre-contact literature at us? Do they think this is a joke? They are attempting humor as a stress response, I offered, reviewing the sociological data. Deflection through comedy is documented in multiple species facing existential threats. Then let's provide clarity about their situation. The commander ordered a demonstration. Nothing lethal, just a warning. Our targeting systems locked onto an uninhabited landmass in what humans called the Pacific Ocean. A single lance of coherent plasma, enough energy to vaporize a small mountain. The beam never reached the surface. Something intercepted it. Not a shield, not a deflector field. Something physically caught the plasma lance and redirected it harmlessly into space. Analysis. Zelric's voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. My console erupted with data that made no sense. Commander, the intercepting object was it appears to be a satellite. Civilian communications model. It shouldn't have been capable of— I know what it shouldn't be capable of. Explain what it did. I couldn't. The readings suggested the satellite had somehow converted the plasma into a directional thrust vector, using our own weapon as a makeshift propulsion system to move itself out of a decaying orbit. The engineering required to accomplish that in microseconds with equipment designed for entertainment broadcasts. Tactical accident, I concluded, because the alternative was impossible. Random quantum fluctuation. Recalculating target. We fired again, this time at a different location, using multiple beams from multiple ships, all intercepted, all redirected, by civilian satellites, by weather monitoring equipment, by what appeared to be someone's private orbital telescope. One beam got redirected into another of our vessels, scorching the hull plating. Nothing critical, but the humiliation burned hotter than the plasma ever could. They are using our weapons against us, Tactical Officer Marine observed, her vocal sacs vibrating with something between admiration and horror. Without proper military infrastructure, how is this possible? Another broadcast from Earth, this time on multiple channels. A male human, older than the previous speaker, with facial hair arranged in a style their culture apparently associated with authority. This is General Thomas Alvarez of the United Earth Defense Coalition. To the fleet currently occupying near-Earth space, we have noted your aggressive actions and interpreted them as hostile intent. Be advised that we have taken appropriate defensive measures. Any further attacks will be met with escalating responses. We recommend immediate withdrawal to beyond the heliopause for diplomatic discussions. Zelric made a sound like grinding stones. They recommend? They have no faster-than-light capability, no energy weapons, barely functional orbital infrastructure, and they recommend we withdraw. Commander, I interjected carefully, their defensive intercepts were remarkably sophisticated. Perhaps we should finish what we started. The fleet advanced, crossing into lunar orbital distance. Surely, this would trigger panic. This would break their resolve. Instead, their moon lit up. Not metaphorically, literally. The entire lunar surface began emitting a soft blue glow. Those aren't natural formations, sensor specialist Cragg announced, mandibles trembling. The craters, they are not impact sites. They are power collectors. The entire moon is a battery. For what? Zelric demanded. We got our answer 30 seconds later. The asteroid belt moved, not randomly, not according to gravitational mechanics. In formation. Hundreds of rocks, ranging from pebble size to mountain scale, adjusted their trajectories with precision that would make our navigators weep with envy. Those aren't asteroids, I whispered, reading the new data flooding my screens. Those are ships. Hollowed-out asteroids, with human crews inside. Mining operations weren't extractions, they were conversions. They have been building a fleet inside rocks for decades. Impossible. Our intelligence showed no indication. Our intelligence was wrong. The first asteroid opened fire, not with plasma, not with particle beams, with something we'd never encountered before. A weapon that somehow induced instantaneous entropy increase in targeted systems. Translation. It made things fall apart. Just stop working. Metal fatigued. Circuits failed. Composite materials separated into component elements. The Eternal Dominion's port shields collapsed as their own molecules forgot how to cooperate. Evasive maneuvers. Return fire. We tried. We genuinely tried. But the humans had apparently spent their centuries of isolation studying every single broadcast we'd ever leaked into space. Every military engagement. Every tactical doctrine. They knew how we fought because we'd been showing them for generations, and they'd prepared accordingly. Their weapons weren't designed to destroy. They were designed to disable, to frustrate, to confuse. A lance would fire from one asteroid, our targeting systems would lock on, and then 17 other asteroids would light up with identical energy signatures, which was the real threat. All of them, none of them. By the time we figured out the answer, it was too late. They'd already moved again. This is insane, Marine shouted over the chaos erupting across the bridge. They are fighting like they have been planning this specific battle for centuries. I pulled up historical archives, scanning through humanity's limited space presence. Commander, I'm seeing references to something called science fiction, Speculative literature where they imagined encounters with hostile alien species. Thousands of scenarios, millions of tactical variations. They have been wargaming this exact situation since before they achieved orbit. Zelric's expression shifted from anger to something approaching respect. They prepared for us without knowing we existed. They prepared for everyone, everything, every possible threat from the stars. It's not paranoia if you are actually surrounded by potential enemies, and they assume the universe is full of them. Another transmission, audio only this time. The voice belonged to someone young, probably male, with an accent that suggested one of their southern hemisphere regions. Attention, blockading fleet. This is Captain Ravi Okonkwo of the UEEDS Audacity. Yes, that's really what we named it. We are currently parked about 300 meters off our flagship's starboard sensor array. We'd appreciate it if you'd power down weapons and prepare to receive a diplomatic envoy. Unless you'd prefer we demonstrate what happens when you detonate a fusion drive inside an enemy hangar bay. We tested it on abandoned hulks. Very effective. Messy, but effective. I checked sensors. He wasn't bluffing. A human ship, barely larger than a shuttle, had somehow penetrated our defensive perimeter and positioned itself in a location where our own weapons couldn't target it without risking catastrophic damage to the Dominion. How had they gotten so close without detection? Sir, Crag offered weakly, their hull appears to be coated in a polymer that absorbs our scanner frequencies. It's made from, I'm reading, organic compounds. Plant matter? They built a stealth ship out of processed vegetation and composites. I translated from their database. Cannabis-derived industrial fibers. They used recreational drug plants to create military-grade camouflage. Zelric said nothing for a long moment. Then he started laughing. Deep, rumbling sounds that echoed through the bridge, the kind of laughter that emerged when the universe revealed a joke too perfect for words. Stand down, he finally ordered. All ships, cease fire. Withdraw to previous positions. Commander, we are not retreating, Horvath. We are reassessing. This species, they are either the most dangerous primitives in the galaxy or the luckiest fools who ever achieved sentience. Either way, I need to understand them before I decide whether to conquer them or recruit them. The fleet pulled back. The humans didn't pursue. They simply waited, their asteroid ships maintaining a perimeter that somehow felt more threatening than our own blockade ever had. Diplomats arrived within hours. Not one delegation. 17. Each representing different nation-states, each competing to speak first, each absolutely certain their approach was the correct one. They argued with each other more than they negotiated with us, and yet somehow they'd coordinated the defense perfectly. How? I finally asked one of them during a recess. A negotiator named Victoria Espinosa, who seemed less interested in posturing than her colleagues. How did you organize such effective resistance when you can barely agree on trade policies? She smiled, and I recognized it as the same expression Kelly Branson had worn during that first broadcast. Humor masking something deep. You made a fundamental error in your assessment, Horvath. You assumed because we fight among ourselves, we couldn't fight together. But humans have been practicing war for our entire existence. We know every trick, every tactic, every psychological manipulation, because we have used them on each other for millennia. You gave us a common enemy, the one thing that always unites us. And if we'd approached peacefully, then you'd be meeting 17 different responses right now, and probably getting caught in trade disputes that would make your head tentacles hurt. But you threatened us, all of us, together. She leaned closer, and her voice dropped to something almost conspiratorial. Word of advice, never assume the species that figured out how to split atoms and immediately used them as weapons is going to be an easy conquest. We are very good at breaking things, including expectations. The negotiations dragged on for weeks, not because the humans were difficult, but because they were exhausting. For every concession we requested, they countered with 17 different proposals. For every threat we implied, they demonstrated 20 new ways to make our lives complicated. They never attacked again, never needed to. They'd made their point. Commander Zelric finally called me to his private quarters on the 23rd day of discussions. He looked older somehow, as if the stress of dealing with humanity had aged him beyond his cycles. I'm recommending withdrawal, he said without preamble. Not retreat, withdrawal. There's a difference. The Sovereignty Council won't accept that without justification. Then I will give them the truth. Earth is not worth the cost of conquest. Not because we can't defeat them, but because victory would be Pyrrhic. Every calculation suggests we'd lose 30% of the fleet even in a successful invasion, and that's before accounting for whatever other surprises they are hiding. He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth and its surrounding space. Red markers indicated confirmed human defensive installations. Blue markers showed suspected capabilities. The blue outnumbered the red by a factor of 12. They have turned their entire star system into a fortress, or bath. Not through superior technology, but through sheer bloody-minded persistence and the assumption that someday someone would come looking for trouble. They were right. We did. And we found more than we bargained for. So we just leave? We leave. We report. We recommend Earth be classified as a developing ally rather than a conquest target. Let the sovereignty figure out if they want to deal with these insane primates on equal terms. I certainly don't have the patience for it. That night I couldn't stop reviewing the tactical recordings. Watching those civilian satellites intercept military-grade weapons. Seeing asteroid ships execute maneuvers that should have torn them apart. Reading through the archives of human science fiction, the millions of words spent imagining contact scenarios. They'd been ready for us because they'd imagined us. Every possible version of us. Every threat. Every approach. And when we finally arrived, matching one of their thousands of predicted scenarios, they simply executed the appropriate response. The efficiency of it was beautiful. The paranoia required to achieve it was terrifying. The fleet began withdrawal procedures the following morning. As we prepared to quantum slip back to sovereignty space, one final transmission reached the Eternal Dominion. Audio only, from someone who identified herself as simply a concerned citizen. "Hey, thanks for stopping by. Sorry about all the weapon fire. We are still learning this whole interstellar neighbor thing. But if you are ever back in the area and you are feeling friendly, look us up. We'd love to talk trade agreements, cultural exchange, maybe some technology sharing if you are not feeling threatened by the competition. Oh, and one more thing." The voice shifted, losing its cheerful tone, becoming something flat and cold and absolutely serious. "Tell your friends we are not looking for trouble, but we are extremely good at finding it when it comes looking for us. We have had 5,000 years of practice on each other. Imagine what we can do when we finally agree on a target. Sleep well. Space friends. Or don't. We will be here either way." The transmission ended. Zelric looked at me across the bridge. "Horvath, your honest assessment. If the sovereignty decided to return in force, full armada, no restraint, what would happen?" I considered the question carefully. Ran the scenarios. Factored in human ingenuity, their talent for adaptation, their absolutely insane willingness to weaponize anything including their own planet's moon. "We'd win," I said slowly. "Eventually, at tremendous cost. And then we'd spend the next century dealing with human resistance movements, sabotage, and increasingly creative forms of revenge. They are the kind of species that holds grudges across generations and considers it a point of pride. So total victory would actually be total defeat. In every way that matters, yes, sir." The commander made a gesture of resignation. "Then let's go home and recommend they leave Earth alone. Some species aren't meant to be conquered. They are meant to be avoided until they calm down, which, given human history, might take another few thousand cycles, if they don't destroy themselves first." Horvath. "After what I have seen, I'd bet on them surviving long enough to become everyone else's problem. The universe has a dark sense of humor, and humanity is definitely the punchline." The Eternal Dominion slipped into quantum space, leaving Earth's star system behind. But I couldn't shake the feeling we'd just made first contact with something dangerous. Not immediately threatening, not overtly hostile, but possessing a potential that scared me more than any weapon system. They were creative, adaptive, and absolutely convinced that threats could come from anywhere at any time, which meant when they finally developed faster-than-light travel, I filed my report under Species of Concern, Monitor but do not engage. The Sovereignty Council would decide humanity's fate. I just hoped they'd make the smart choice, because the alternative was teaching humans they needed to prepare for the next invasion. And given what they'd accomplished preparing for the first one, I really didn't want to see what they'd come up with for an encore. The Sovereignty Council did not make the smart choice. 3 stellar cycles after our withdrawal, I received a priority transmission recalling me to Central Command. Not a request. A demand. The kind that suggested someone important had made a decision I was going to hate. I was correct. High Chancellor Vorn occupied the largest chamber in the administrative complex, a space designed to remind visitors of their insignificance. Multiple species representatives lined the curved walls, their collective attention focused on the central platform where I stood, feeling very much like a specimen under analysis. Coordinator Horvath. Vorn began, his quadruple voice box creating harmonics that made my bones itch. Your report on the Earth incident has generated considerable debate. Some colleagues suggest we heed your warnings. Others believe Commander Zelric's retreat represents cowardice rather than wisdom.
I kept my expression neutral.
The commander made a tactical assessment based on projected casualties versus strategic gain, a calculation that assumes human defensive capabilities are genuine rather than elaborate bluffing. There it was, the stupidity I'd been dreading. High Chancellor, respectfully, the evidence clearly indicates evidence can be fabricated. We have done it ourselves during psychological operations. What if humanity simply excels at theater? What if their entire defensive display was smoke and mirrors designed to convince us they are more dangerous than they actually are? I wanted to laugh, wanted to scream, settled for grinding my mandibles together hard enough to produce an audible click. Sir, they intercepted plasma weapons with civilian satellites. They operated a fleet of armed asteroids with precision that rivals our best pilots. The technological sophistication required could be explained by assistance from another power, interrupted Council Member Threx, her gill flaps fluttering with agitation. Perhaps a rival sovereignty provided them with advanced technology. Perhaps this entire situation is a trap designed to make us appear weak. That makes no sense. If another power wanted to challenge us, why use humans as proxies? Why not reveal themselves? Because you are thinking tactically, Horvath. Some of us must think politically. Politics. Of course, this wasn't about Earth anymore. This was about council members positioning themselves for advantage, using humanity as a convenient excuse to demonstrate strength or caution based on whichever approach benefited their personal agendas. Vorthan raised a primary appendage, silencing the murmurs spreading through the chamber. The council has voted. We will send an assessment fleet to Earth, not for conquest, merely to verify your claims about human capabilities. If they are genuinely as dangerous as your report suggests, we will classify them appropriately and establish diplomatic channels. If they are not, then we wasted resources on a species that got lucky once, Threx finished. Either way, we gain valuable intelligence. Who's commanding the assessment fleet? I asked, though I already suspected the answer would disappoint me. Admiral Kresh. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Kresh the undefeated, whose tactical philosophy could be summarized as hit things until they stop moving, then hit them again to be sure. Sending him to assess humanity was like sending a plasma torch to evaluate the flammability of oxygen. High Chancellor, I must protest. Kresh is an excellent warrior, but his approach lacks the subtlety required for— Your protest is noted and dismissed. You will accompany the fleet as senior analyst. Your expertise on human behavior will prove invaluable. Translation. When everything went catastrophically wrong, they wanted someone to blame besides themselves. I accepted the assignment because refusing would have been career suicide. Also because someone needed to prevent Kresh from accidentally triggering an interstellar incident that got us all killed. The assessment fleet departed 4 solar rotations later, smaller than Zelric's armada, only 300 ships, but equipped with the latest weapon systems and staffed by veterans who'd never experienced defeat. That last part worried me most. Admiral Kresh held briefings in his ready room, a space dominated by trophies from previous campaigns, crystallized atmosphere samples from conquered worlds, preserved specimens of defeated species, a chunk of hull plating from the last ship that tried to fight back. Humans, he announced during our first meeting, are an anomaly requiring correction. They displayed unexpected resistance because Commander Zelric approached them with predictable tactics. We will not repeat his mistakes, Admiral, I ventured carefully. The humans have had 3 additional cycles to improve their defenses. They are aware we know about their capabilities. They will be prepared for a second contact. Then we will be prepared for their preparations. Tactical adaptation is my specialty. Horvath. I didn't earn my rank by being outsmarted by primitives who think mounting engines on rocks counts as naval strategy. I wanted to point out that said primitives had forced a much larger fleet to withdraw. Wanted to explain that underestimating humanity was exactly how this would go wrong. Instead, I pulled up the compiled intelligence reports. We have monitored their broadcast continuously since first contact. Their technological advancement has accelerated. New satellite launches every orbital cycle. Increased activity in the asteroid belt. They are building something. Good. Let them build. We will study their constructions and learn their true capabilities. What if their true capabilities exceed our defensive parameters? Kresh's laugh sounded like tectonic plates grinding together. Horvath, I have pacified 17 systems, defeated empires that spanned multiple stars. You think a single planet species presents a legitimate threat? I think a single planet species that's been imagining invasion scenarios for millennia might surprise you, sir. Then I will enjoy the surprise. We emerged from quantum slip at the edge of Earth's star system, maintaining maximum distance while sensors mapped the local environment. Immediately, the readings confused everyone except me, Admiral. I'm detecting massive construction in multiple orbital zones. The sensor officer reported structures that weren't present during the previous contact, some kind of grid pattern, extending from Earth to lunar orbit and beyond. Defensive installations? Gresh asked. Unknown. The energy signatures are minimal. Whatever they built, it's not drawing significant power. I studied the patterns forming on the tactical display, geometric precision, overlapping fields of coverage. Something familiar about the arrangement that tickled my memory. It's a net, I said quietly. What? A net? Primitive Earth fishermen used nets to capture prey. These installations form a similar structure. Three-dimensional, self-reinforcing, designed to entangle rather than destroy. You are suggesting they want to capture our ships. I'm suggesting they learned from our last encounter. We had superior firepower, so they are not competing on firepower. They are changing the nature of the engagement entirely. Gresh made a dismissive gesture. Speculation. We advance according to standard protocols. All ships, forward formation. Deploy scanning arrays. Let's see what these humans have actually built. The fleet moved inward, crossing the heliopause where interstellar medium met stellar wind. Nothing happened. No intercepting ships. No warning broadcasts. Just silence and those strange geometric installations growing denser as we approached. This is unsettling, muttered the tactical officer, a young sovereignty member named Prax, who'd never encountered anything he couldn't immediately categorize. Why aren't they responding? They must detect us by now. Oh, they definitely detect us, I confirmed, reviewing electromagnetic spectrum analysis. Multiple tracking beams. Hundreds of them. They are painting us with every sensor type imaginable. Then why not challenge us? Issue warnings. Something. I had theories, none of them reassuring. The first installation activated when we reached Jupiter's orbital path. Not weapons. Something stranger. A pulse of energy that made our navigational systems hiccup, recalibrating themselves against suddenly unreliable reference points. Report, Kresh demanded. The installation emitted a gravitational lensing pulse. Nothing dangerous, but it bent local space-time enough to throw off our positioning calculations. Compensating now. Another installation activated. Then another, each producing minor distortions. Individually insignificant, collectively disorienting. Our fleet's precise formation began drifting as each ship compensated slightly differently for the spatial anomalies. Maintain formation. Don't let them separate us. Too late. The net was already working, not by force but by precision. Tiny pushes, minuscule pulls, leveraging our own momentum against us. The fleet was still together, but no longer in optimal tactical arrangement. Clever, I admitted. They are using our speed and mass against us. The faster we go, the more pronounced the drift. Then we slow down. That's probably what they want, sir. Kresh glared at me. You have a better suggestion? Yes. We leave. Right now. Before they spring whatever trap they have actually prepared. Unacceptable. We came for assessment. We assess. The second layer of defense is activated near Mars. This time, actual ships emerged from camouflaged positions among the planet's moons. Not asteroids anymore. Purpose-built vessels that looked wrong, asymmetric, like someone had designed spacecraft using principles that violated our understanding of engineering. Those hulls shouldn't be spaceworthy, Prax observed. The mass distribution is completely irregular. They'd tear themselves apart during acceleration. One of the human ships performed a 90-degree turn at speeds that should have liquefied any crew, Then it split apart, revealing it wasn't one ship but 7 smaller craft that had been flying in formations so tight our sensors read them as a single object. They are using kamikaze tactics, the weapons officer suggested. Small craft on suicide runs. No, I corrected, watching the patterns develop. They are testing our response times, probing our targeting systems. Watch. They will withdraw before we can establish firing solutions. Exactly as predicted, the human ships executed impossible maneuvers and vanished behind Mars before our weapons could lock on. Cowards. Kresh spat. All this preparation, and they run at the first sign of actual combat, or they got the data they wanted and withdrew to analyze it. Potter, your pessimism is noted. All ships, continue advance. Deploy countermeasures against spatial distortion. We are not being deterred by navigation tricks and flybys. We crossed into the inner system, approaching Earth and its oddly glowing moon. The net of installations grew so dense that flying through them required constant micro-adjustments. Our formation had completely dissolved, each ship navigating independently through the geometric maze. This is intentional fragmentation, I warned. They are isolating us, making coordinated response impossible. Then we will respond individually. Each ship is more than capable of. The trap sprung, not with weapons, with information. Every single human installation simultaneously broadcast on frequencies that bypassed our communication filters. Not to our ships, to our crews, directly into our translation systems, our cultural databases, our personal devices. The broadcast contained Earth's complete military history. Every war, every battle, every tactical innovation developed through 5,000 years of humans killing each other with increasing efficiency. Shut it down, Kresh roared. Block those transmissions. Too late. The information flooded through our systems faster than we could filter it. Detailed accounts of siege warfare, guerrilla tactics, psychological operations, strategic deception. Documentation of conflicts so brutal they made our pacification campaigns look gentle by comparison. But that wasn't the trap. The information was embedded in those historical records were thousands upon thousands of strategic scenarios, simulated battles, war games, every single one showing human forces defeating opponents with superior technology through adaptation, deception, and sheer bloody-minded refusal to accept defeat. Our tactical computers tried to process it all, attempted to categorize the threats, assess the probabilities, calculate optimal responses. They couldn't. The sheer volume of scenarios exceeded processing capacity. Our own systems, designed to find patterns in enemy behavior, found too many patterns, contradictory patterns, impossible patterns. They are overloading our tactical networks with information, I realized, watching my console spiral into recursive analysis loops. Not destroying them, just making them useless by giving them too much to think about. Prax was frantically trying to reboot his systems. This is insane. Who weaponizes their own history? A species that's been fighting itself for millennia and wants us to know exactly what we are dealing with. The human ships returned, emerging from every angle, no longer probing but attacking. Except they still weren't using conventional weapons. They were using garbage. Literal garbage. Refuse. Debris. Chunks of obsolete satellites, spent rocket stages, even compressed waste from orbital habitats. Accelerated to relativistic speeds and aimed with precision that suggested they'd calculated every trajectory weeks in advance. Evasive maneuvers, Kresh commanded, but our navigation systems were still compensating for the spatial distortions. Ships scattered, trying to avoid the incoming trash, only to drift into the paths of other projectiles they hadn't detected. Nothing critical. Nothing that would destroy a ship. Just enough impact damage to disable sensors, disrupt communications, force vessels into emergency repair protocols. They are disabling us with trash. The weapons officer shouted, hysteria creeping into his voice. We are being defeated by garbage, not defeated, I corrected, though my own calm was rapidly deteriorating. Neutralized. There's a difference. They don't want to destroy us. They want to humiliate us. Another broadcast, this time audio-visual. A human female appeared on our screens, middle-aged, wearing what their databases indicated was a military uniform. Her expression radiated the kind of confidence that came from knowing you'd already won. This is Admiral Janet Okafor of the United Earth Defense Coalition. Your fleet is currently navigating through approximately 40,000 individual targeting solutions, each calibrated specifically for your ship classes based on data we gathered from your previous visit. You are not in danger of destruction. You are, however, completely at our mercy." She paused, letting that sink in. "We could have destroyed you. The installations you are flying through, they are not just spatial distortion generators, they are also particle beam arrays. Currently powered down, we chose not to use them because, unlike some species, we prefer not to shoot first and ask questions never." Another pause. "Longer this time. Here's what happens next. You will reverse course and exit this star system. You will report to your superiors that Earth is defended by forces capable of defeating sovereignty fleets without firing a single lethal shot. You will recommend against future hostile actions. And if you are very polite about it, we might consider opening diplomatic channels. Eventually, when we feel like it." Kresh's face had cycled through several colors I didn't know his species could produce. "This is unacceptable. We are the sovereignty. We do not retreat from lesser species based on threats and posturing."
Admiral,
I said quietly, "This isn't posturing, look at the tactical display." He did. The geometric net of installations had shifted, forming new patterns. Patterns that I suddenly realized spelled out words in multiple languages, including our own. "We told you so. They are mocking us," Prax whispered. "Yes," I agreed. "They absolutely are, and they have earned that right." For a long moment, Kresh said nothing. His command staff waited, uncertain whether he'd order a suicidal assault or accept the humiliation of withdrawal. Finally he spoke, voice tight with controlled rage. "Fleet-wide order. Reverse course. Prepare for quantum slip once we clear the heliopause. We are leaving." "A wise choice," Admiral Okafor's voice returned. "Safe travels. Oh, and one more thing. The human ships that had been harassing us suddenly broke formation, executing a synchronized maneuver that spelled out symbols in three-dimensional space. It took our translators a moment to identify them. Ancient Earth gesture. Thumb and forefinger forming a circle, other fingers extended. The meaning, okay or good job, or in this context, we are fine, you can leave now." The sheer audacity of it actually made me laugh. Couldn't help it. These humans had just defeated a sovereignty assessment fleet using trash, math, and sarcasm. They'd turned warfare into theater and made us look like the opening act. The withdrawal took 6 hours. 6 hours of navigating back through that geometric net while human ships watched, not threatening, just observing, making sure we actually left. Once we cleared the system, Kresh finally spoke again. "Horvath, your assessment, the same as before, sir. Earth is not a viable conquest target. They are too creative, too adaptable, and they enjoy humiliating opponents far too much. Any future engagement will result in similar outcomes. Probably worse, since they will have time to prepare new surprises." Recommendations, I considered carefully. We established diplomatic contact, offered trade agreements, proposed cultural exchange. Basically, we tried to befriend them before they develop faster-than-light travel and decide to return the favor of these visits. "You think they'd actually attack sovereignty space?" "I think they'd view it as a learning experience. Besides, they will want to see if we are as much fun to humiliate in our own territory as we were in theirs." Kresh made a sound that might have been agreement or indigestion. "Draft your report. Include full tactical recordings. The Council needs to understand what we encountered." "They won't believe it, sir. Not until they see it themselves. Then they will send another fleet, and another, until someone finally accepts that humanity is not a conquest target, or until humanity gets tired of visitors and decides to visit us instead." That thought settled over the bridge like a heavy blanket. None of us spoke for the remainder of the journey home. My report to the Council was comprehensive, detailed, included every piece of evidence demonstrating human capabilities. I recommended immediate diplomatic outreach, establishment of trade relations, and absolutely no further military expeditions. The Council's response arrived 3 cycles later. They were sending a diplomatic mission, not to establish friendly relations, to demand reparations for the humiliation Earth had inflicted on 2 sovereignty fleets. I submitted my resignation the same day. Some species, I realized, needed to learn lessons the hard way. The sovereignty was apparently one of them. They'd keep poking Earth until humanity finally got tired of being poked and poked back. And when that happened, when humans developed their own faster-than-light drives and ventured out into the galaxy carrying 5,000 years of accumulated military knowledge and a cultural tendency to hold grudges, well, I wanted no part of that disaster. I accepted a research position on a remote colony world, as far from both Earth and sovereignty space as possible. Somewhere quiet, somewhere safe. Somewhere I could watch the inevitable conflict unfold from a comfortable distance. 2 stellar cycles after my resignation, the first human faster-than-light vessel appeared in sovereignty space. It wasn't a warship. It was a cargo hauler painted bright yellow, broadcasting cheerful greetings in 17 languages. The crew requested trade negotiations and offered samples of Earth products as goodwill gestures. The Sovereignty Council responded by attempting to seize the ship. The cargo hauler vanished in a burst of faster-than-light travel, evading capture with ease. 3 days later, 16 human vessels appeared simultaneously across sovereignty space. Not warships, survey ships, research vessels, civilian craft, all equipped with faster-than-light drives that outperformed anything we'd developed. All crewed by humans who'd been studying our tactics for years, all very politely asking for those diplomatic talks we'd ignored. The Council finally agreed to negotiations. I watched the first contact summit from my remote colony broadcast across the galaxy because humanity insisted on transparency. Admiral Okafor led the Earth delegation, flanked by representatives from various human nation-states who somehow managed to present a united front despite clearly disagreeing on everything else. High Chancellor Vorn opened with prepared remarks about mutual cooperation and shared prosperity. Okafor waited until he finished, then smiled that same confident smile I remembered from the defense of Earth. "Thank you, Chancellor. We appreciate the warm welcome. Now about those 2 unprovoked invasions of our star system. We have prepared a list of grievances and proposed reparations. Don't worry, we are being very reasonable. We only want technology sharing, most favored trade status, and a formal apology broadcast across all sovereignty channels." The Chancellor's expression suggested he'd just swallowed something toxic. "You are demanding reparations from us? Well, you did blockade our planet twice. That's generally considered an act of war. We are choosing to interpret it as a cultural misunderstanding instead. But misunderstandings have consequences. This is outrageous. The sovereignty does not bow to demands from lesser species." Okafor's smile never wavered. "Chancellor, we are not a lesser species. We are a newer species. There's a difference. And we have spent the last few cycles reverse engineering the propulsion technology from ships you so kindly left drifting in our system after the garbage incident. Very informative. We have made several improvements. Actually, want to see?" A human ship appeared on the view screen, executing maneuvers that shouldn't be possible even with advanced faster-than-light drives, loops, spirals, patterns that spelled out more words. This time they wrote faster than you. The negotiations continued for weeks. The humans got most of what they demanded, not through threats, but through the sheer exhausting persistence of people who'd been negotiating with each other for millennia and knew every trick in the book. The final agreement established Earth as an independent sovereign entity with full trade rights and diplomatic recognition. The sovereignty formally apologized for the unfortunate misunderstandings that led to 2 separate blockades. Humanity graciously accepted and promised not to hold grudges. They were lying, of course. Humans always hold grudges, but they hold them politely, professionally, with smiles that promise revenge served cold at some future date when you have forgotten to expect it. 3 more cycles passed. Human ships became common sights across known space, trading, exploring, making friends and enemies with equal enthusiasm. They never returned to Earth's system with hostile intent. Word had spread. The species that defeated 2 sovereignty fleets using garbage and geometry was not to be trifled with. I eventually emerged from retirement to write a comprehensive study on human behavior. It became required reading at military academies across 36 species territories. The title, "Why You Should Never Assume the Paranoid Primates Are Bluffing," it sold quite well. Sometimes I receive messages from former colleagues asking if I think humanity will eventually become a threat to galactic peace. I always give the same answer. They already are a threat, but they are also potential allies, trading partners, and surprisingly good friends if you approach them honestly. Just never ever try to conquer them, because they have been preparing for that scenario since before they achieved spaceflight, and they have got 5,000 years of practice making life difficult for anyone stupid enough to try. The sovereignty learned that lesson the hard way, twice. Some species need repetition for comprehension. Humans understand that about us. They are very patient about teaching, and they never forget those who failed the first test.